Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PARQA PulseCast. I'm Travis Webb, VP of Sales, and I'd be lying to you if I told you I wasn't super excited about today's episode. If you've been following PARQA on our social media over the last few weeks, you've seen some really big announcements from bringing on a new co-CEO to securing our first round of funding to hiring. We've brought on a couple of resources, but we still continue to hire to support the growth of our organization. So I'm excited today to have our two co-CEOs, Jared Hummel and Adam Post, join us, as well as our newest member of our board of directors, Matt Meents, who's also the strategic growth partner from Traction Capital, who made the investment in PARQA. So, gentlemen, super excited to have you with us here today. I really am. I've been waiting to do this episode for a few months. I know Jared was ready to pull his hair out. We always want things to happen faster, but we finally got things secured, and so we're here today. So before we kind of get into the meat of the conversation, let's do some quick introductions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got either got to know PARQA or how you've gotten involved with PARQA. So I think this will be interesting to hear everybody's background. So Jared, as the OG, let's start with you.
My pleasure. First, I got to come up with a new hand signal because Adam had the wave, Matt had to sing. I don't know what mine is yet, but we're jamming, so I'll do that one. Yeah. So, anyways, Jared Hummel, founder and co-CEO of PARQA. My journey started with PARQA, obviously, well before these two, but really, I had sold my manufacturing business that I was a part of and was kind of looking for my next gig, and executive recruiter reached out to me asking if I'd be open to being the CFO at a staffing recruiting firm. And as a finance guy by trade, I thought the only staffing recruiting firm that did finance was Robert Half. So over the last 5 years, I've found out that there's actually 22,000 staffing firms, not just one Robert Half. But anyways, started as a CFO, and at the time I was 29 years old, and I was really excited about being in this white collar environment that I could really learn from everyone around me and all that. And as a CFO, I learned pretty quickly coming out of manufacturing that the industry as a whole was still just smiling and dialing, and a lot of the tools that I thought would be standard place, not only at the company I was at, but just in general, were not where I thought they would be. So fast forward a little bit, and I'll skip some of the early days, but I think it was probably 6 months into running PARQA as a subsidiary of Verseek that I met Adam, actually, and I was trying to figure out what can we do to automate this stuff? This is crazy. And so Adam sat down, and I think he probably had the same response that I did of wait, so you can't use Salesforce, you can't use HubSpot, you can't what are we supposed to do here? And so really the last 3 to 4 years has just been that journey of PARQA really grew as a marketing company, but my passion as a finance guy was always around data and technology. And just as Travis, in the last 18 to 24 months, Salesforce has really made a push into staffing, and I think that as Adam and Matt kind of explain their journeys, it will all come together pretty cleanly. So that's a little background on Jared.
Awesome, thank you. And we're definitely going to touch on that Salesforce push into staffing and recruiting. Obviously, that's why the four of us are sitting on this meeting right now. So, but awesome, thanks for that intro, Adam. How about yourself?
Sure thing. Because I'll start with, hi, I'm Adam. Adam Post here. It's been a fun ride. I've had a pretty awesome career so far. Ironically, I went to school for entrepreneurship and had the incredible opportunity to spend my first job at 8.5 years working with Matt Meents here at this little company called Magnet 360. And one of the coolest things about my experience there was, one, I got to wear many hats. I was in sales, I was in delivery, I was in leadership. I was all over the place. I got to do it all, which was this incredible experience and incredible exposure to the Salesforce platform. But what was really incredible for me was my exposure to Magnet 360 came through as an entrepreneurship student. So I wasn't just an employee, I was a student of the business, because that's how I met Matt. That's how I met some incredible leaders and mentors that were there who coached me up and showed me what it looked like to build an incredible consulting business. And I had this once in a lifetime experience riding that train and helping to drive growth in that business. People always ask, you gonna go back to school? You can go get your master's? You gonna go, do whatever? I'm like, man, I've had it and then some. Man, the
Hard
experience
knocks,
I had
getting
with
PhD.
Man, the amount that I was able to learn through that experience, through the ups, through the downs, through my own successes and my own failures was incredible. And so I had just the most amazing ride there, and learned from so many incredible leaders and incredible mentors. After my 8.5 years there at Magnet 360, I started my own consulting firm with a good friend of mine, who was also a leader at Magnet 360. And we started a business called In Stereo. Consulting firm focused on helping B2B organizations drive incredible buyer experience through the use of technology. So we were a Salesforce partner, and we also dabbled into the broader Salesforce ecosystem of capabilities that integrate with Salesforce to help build even better experiences and more efficiency and more growth. One of those partners who we worked with very closely was a company called SalesLoft. And we had the incredible experience of being one of their early partners and ultimately their top consulting partner. And hot off winning a SalesLoft Partner of the Year award, we decided, hey, we got to raise some more money. We got to raise some capital. We got to go grow our business. And we approached SalesLoft as one of our core partners and said, like, hey, will you become an investor as we continue to grow this thing? And SalesLoft said, hey, well, why don't you just join the family and come on board? So had an incredible experience of selling that business to SalesLoft and then spending 3.5 years within SalesLoft, driving their onboarding process and their consulting services team through an incredible transformation of what was your typical SaaS pro-serve team to truly a market-leading consulting org focused on driving customer outcomes. And through that, we increased the size of the team by 6x. We created a profitable organization. And the most important thing of it all was the customer results on the other end. Through all of that growth, through all that transformation, we were able to maintain like a 9.5, 9.6 customer satisfaction score and constantly get the feedback that we were the best team that those customers had ever worked with. And for me, that's what it's all about. Right? It's all about making customers successful. Now, through all of that experience, as Jared mentioned, I had this incredible opportunity to meet Jared and meet the First Seek team and work with PARQA. Was that 6, 7, 8 years ago now? So something like that. So
Long.
too long. Yeah. So got some early exposure to PARQA back then and have stayed really, really close, have stayed in contact. Back then it was like, hey, how do we do some automation? Like, hey, these tools don't work, but hey, there's this little tool out there called Herefish. And this tool Herefish connects with Bullhorn, and maybe we can drive some automation that way. So, was an early user of Herefish and helped the PARQA team adopt that tool and learn the best practices around it, which was an awesome experience. Since then, had an opportunity to serve on PARQA's advisory board. So I've stayed close to Jared and the business over the course of the last few years in an advisory capacity. And when Jared approached me earlier this year to say, like, hey, we're going all in on Salesforce. This opportunity is here. The opportunity is now. This industry needs a market-leading perspective on what we can drive and how we can drive transformation and growth for these companies. I was like, hey, great, let's do it. When can I start? So it's been an awesome experience, and I just couldn't be more excited to be here.
Awesome. And I know I speak for the whole team. We're super excited to have you on board. And just a short period that you've been here, the changes that we're making and just the way we're tightening everything up has been really exciting. So super excited to have you on board. And last but certainly not least, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. And thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Matt Meents, board member here at PARQA. I'm also a strategic growth partner at Traction Capital. I've spent the last 25 years really building, scaling, and investing in high growth businesses, really across professional services, as well as what I call tech enabled platforms. So on the professional services side, as Adam mentioned, had the opportunity to work with him at Magnet 360. And, that was a 20-year run. And we learned a lot in the 20 years from hitting the ceiling and not being able to grow to getting our focus. And that focus happened to be in Salesforce.com. Once we started really leaning into that focus, and being the best in the world at Salesforce.com, Salesforce took notice. They invested in us a couple times and helped us really drive growth in the organization, which was absolutely fantastic. And it helped me understand the more you focus, the better you get, the more you get known for something. And as you get known for something, growth comes along with that. Had the opportunity to grow the company to be a national practice of about 150 consultants. We sold to a company in 2016 called Mindtree, and they were a strategic acquisition, or we were a strategic acquisition to Mindtree in a sense of they had massive Fortune 2000 customers. Those Fortune 2000 customers were looking for Salesforce expertise, and they didn't have it. And the only thing we did was Salesforce.com. And so by bringing us in, we were to help them with their client base. Grew that practice, was there 3 years, flew all over the world. It was absolutely amazing experience. When I left there, we were 500 consultants global, and just really, really doing a great job for Mindtree and their customers. But what I was missing was the entrepreneurial growth. Multi-billion-dollar company, 30,000 employees versus, bootstrapped, losing your hair because you're trying to figure out everything you're trying to do to get done with the company. And so
What hair?
Yeah, exactly.
What
Right.
is
It was
this
there.
like a
Adam,
360 thing? Is my hair gonna start
Yeah,
going now? Like what the
yeah,
hell?
yeah.
Just you
It
wait.
was there when I started Magnet. I'll tell you that much. It's definitely gone since. But anyway, took a sabbatical and decided, I could start a services firm, but I really wanted to learn about software as a service companies and build a software platform, and actually go the VC route. Spent 20 years bootstrapping, and now I wanted to go fast. As Jared likes to go fast, I wanted to go fast, and so got connected up with a local VC here, Rally Ventures, and we kicked around this idea of really taking background checks to the next level, and really making it a better experience for the candidate, better experience for the hiring managers, making it embedded. What's interesting is when we started the company, Yardstick, in April of 2020. So the pandemic happened and we got our first VC funding. What was super interesting about that was, if you step back and look at it, we were building this platform, doing background checks, and the roles that needed to be background checked were highly in the gig industry. So it was all about speed and getting them done quickly. And those roles were delivery drivers. So think about COVID when you wanted everything delivered. It was tutors. So think about your kids are now at home and they need help. So we credential tutors, and it was traveling nurses in these gig platforms. Because there was just a huge demand in the medical industry for COVID. And so we really cut our teeth there. And what we learned over the 5 years I ran it was that also applied to the staffing industry. And so Yardstick really took all that experience about, if you don't place somebody as quick as possible in the gig economy, they're on to the next gig platform. And I think that's the same within staffing, is they're gone if you don't do it and do it quickly. And so Yardstick's really focused in on the staffing industry and got really excited about it. Stepped down from Yardstick in December of 2024. I'd been an advisor to Traction Capital for 5 years, helped Shane Erickson, the founder, really start it. But then went on to do Yardstick. And I decided it was time for me to kind of move on from operating and start to get into advising. And that's really what drives me, is helping companies align strategy, technology, and talent to just move faster and kick ass. And that's really what drove me to PARQA, because I think the opportunity is massive, and the team's ready to scale. And I've got a lot of experience both in the Salesforce ecosystem and the staffing ecosystem, and I just see a real natural fit here where we're going.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you on our board of directors, and we're also excited in Traction's belief in what we're doing. So that transitions well into kind of what I'd like to first start talking about is, funding, growth, our partnership with Traction, right? So if you think about that, what does that investment really unlock for us from a PARQA perspective? But also, too, how do we support our clients? or how does it support our clients? So, Jared, I'm going to kick that one to you.
Yeah. So I think I kind of summarized this a little bit in my announcement post, but I'll say it again in more detail. One is obviously like VCs and private equity are in the business of money, right? So the capital aspect is obviously one part of it, but I think even just hearing kind of Matt's story and Adam's story is like, I don't look at this as like a one and done situation, like with Traction and in the future, having Matt having raised money from Salesforce directly. I know that Traction also has another Salesforce portfolio company that just raised with Salesforce Ventures and Traction together, and just how we structured our deal with Traction to make sure that like this wasn't just a one and done situation, that this was something that as we get traction, we can continue to grow aggressively. So that was number one. But I think, if it's not self-evident by the introductions of Matt and Adam, it's more than just some money. It's I know there's a million different kinds of VCs and PE firms, but I would say that Traction is not a traditional VC firm in the fact that they run heavily on the EOS operating system, which obviously helped get their name, Traction Capital. But that's something that myself, Adam, Julie, and Dan have all been a big proponent of for a long time. Having them, have Matt on our board, I didn't go into it probably as much, but I kind of fanboy over I met Adam 5 years ago, and I had these dreams of being in the Magnet 360 circle, and I said, like, this is as close as I'm going to get to a Magnet 360 happy hour, but at least we're close. So I think it's really that expertise in the space of Salesforce, of really helping Minnesota companies grow their business, of EOS. Like, it's more than just taking a paycheck or a check and doing what we will with it, and how that helps our clients is, I think I said this the other day, is like, we were at Bullhorn Engage 3 weeks ago now, and they just launched Amplify, which was their Agent Force solution on the Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud platform. And we got a call from Bullhorn Monday morning being like, hey, like, we're getting incredible response from this, but like, we don't have the internal team. Like, is PARQA ready to help on this? And I'm like, there's a lot of growth and maturity in this industry, as Matt already stated. And I think by having this group around us, not only is it the capital, but I think our clients are going to see huge benefits at the speed of which we can mature our business to help their businesses be successful in a time that is, frankly, the speed at which digital transformation or AI or whatever you want to call it is happening is just expediting, right? So I'll turn it over to Adam and Matt, but that's really what kind of a dream come true for me. So
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about what does this investment mean for PARQA, I think 2 words: rocket fuel. Right. We've found ourselves in this incredible space, right? Expertise in staffing and recruiting, expertise in Salesforce, and there's so much opportunity to bring the expertise that we have and our process that we've built and this capability that we can bring to our customer base to a wider swath of customers. Right. And what this investment does for us is it's purely the rocket fuel, right? We need to do more of what we intend to do and what we're already doing, and we need to do it faster, and we need to extend our reach, right? To be able to do, to allow a wider set of customers to benefit from what we can bring to the market. Now, every customer is at a different stage of maturity, and that'll happen over time. And there's different ways that we can get started. What this investment allows us to do is start to build the team, scale our process, and deliver more work to more customers more quickly.
Yep, absolutely. Matt, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to investment, we couldn't be more excited. And as Jared said, it's not just about the capital, it's about enabling this capability. I mean, we've got this great expertise with the team. We've got the Salesforce.com ecosystem and platforms that have been built on it. You've got client credibility. And so how do we just amplify all of that and take it all to the next level? And so I think about it as we're trying to remove friction for growth and fuel what's already working. and really do it in a, ability to really scale quickly and create sharper client outcomes is kind of the way I think about this as far as where the investment's going, but also just the expertise and experience of the people around the table. I'm hoping that helps, and I know it'll help avoid making some mistakes that I've made in the past, just by bringing relevant experiences, saying there's different strategies and different ways to do this. I've tried them all. I've probably failed at all of them over the last 25 years, but there's a few that kind of work here and there, and I'm hoping I can shed some light on that for the PARQA team.
Awesome. And I hope for those of you watching that are familiar with EOS, you've picked up on the terms or the books or everything we've mentioned to this point. The one thing I'll say for folks that aren't familiar with PE or VC money, it's not meant to put in the bank and sit there, right? It's meant to be put into action. And part of that is building a team, building a culture, building a kind of mission-driven, purpose-driven team to take this to market, right? So when we talk about rocket fuel, right, we have some key pieces to the rocket in place now. But as I mentioned earlier, we are hiring, and we're being very specific about who we bring onto the team, an ideal skill set, but also that culture and all of that goes along with. So Adam, why don't you talk a little bit about that kind of as we move forward, as we put this investment to work, we think about culture and the team. What does that look like?
Yeah, man, I love this question. I love talking about culture, and man, I mentioned it earlier, but I had a master class what it means to build an amazing culture through watching what everything that 360 did, and building truly a one of a kind culture, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. So where it starts is building an organization that is laser focused on our mission and core values. And where we're focused on our mission for what we're trying to accomplish in the market and have a strong set of core values that we anchor on, that establishes a foundation for culture. I feel like every company, like they've got their own definition, like what is culture? And everybody has their own way of defining it. I went to a conference, and there was an amazing speaker who had a whole thing that they did around culture, and they defined culture very, very simply. Culture is simply how we do things around here. That's what it is, right? And when you build an organization that is just anchored in a mission and a set of core values, right? It's all about living and breathing those core values every day. So we just went through an exercise at PARQA to relaunch and reimagine what our core values were all going to be about, right? And we're going to make a major focus in making sure that everything we do as a business, everything that we do as employees of the business and operators of the business are all anchored in those core values. For employees, we're going to be assessing performance based on those values. We're going to be coaching based on those values. We're going to be promoting based on those values. When we hire, we're going to be assessing a candidate's fit based on alignment with those core values, right? When people live and breathe those values every day, just naturally as a human being, and we bring them into the business and they already exude those values, right? We expand how we operate. We all operate with a like mind, with a purpose around that mission and an operating structure around those values. And when that happens, culture can fall into place more naturally, right? You don't just want to be an organization where you put your core values on the wall and you say, hey, look, there they are. That's the culture. That's not who we're going to be, right? We're going to have a mission. We're going to have a focus. We're going to have a purpose of dominating this market and doing some good for the world and helping people get back to work. And we're going to do it in a way that is laser focused on our core values.
Awesome. Jared, I know you've been heavily involved in the hiring process, and as we build this out, what are your thoughts around that with culture and building the team?
Yeah, I would say, this is probably the definition of the book Rocket Fuel. So to keep going on the traction, but since Adam hit the nuts and bolts of it, I'll go into visionary mode a little bit and just say that, what I love about Adam and Matt and kind of what we've already talked about their past is, like, I've had the opportunity in my life through sports. I was thinking about this like 5 times to be a part of something from scratch to winning a championship at some kind of significance. And until you've been through that, you don't really understand, like, you can't explain it in words. And when I've watched from a distance with Matt and Adam, like, I mean, the fact that they still have meetups for Magnet 360 that get, 100 people, or, going through this hiring process and knowing that like they're all still connected and they're all still friends and they can all still call each other up, and like they went on a journey together. And I saw it with Adam as he was leaving Sales Loft too. Like, I mean, I remember when they were 4 employees, and Nick and Carrie are still at Sales Loft, whatever, 7-8 years later. And so it's just like one of those things where it's hard for me as a visionary to put like a thing on it. But when you have a market and you have the right people together, like it's more than just like a job. It's truly a career and an experience. And that's what I'm like most excited about, is when you get enough momentum going and enough of the right people that share the right values, like you pretty much become unstoppable. And I know that these two have done it, and I've got the opportunity to do it in my personal life, and excited to see this happen again on the professional side. So that's my visionary statement to it.
No, absolutely. And I, listening to Matt earlier, Matt mentioned going from 150 to 500 consultants, right? And I think about that. Hopefully one day we're in that scenario. Right now we're a little bit smaller than that and growing up, right? But I mean, Matt, what are your thoughts around this when you're building a team like that? And you've built some big teams, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. But it always started with the first, and then the second, and the third. And just to kind of riff off a little bit, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, they've got a tool in there called the Vision Traction Organizer. And, Adam hit on the first bucket in that Vision Traction Organizer is around the values. And do you share them, and are they followed by all? And so I think that's really important, because when you're going to grow a company and be on the journey, it's going to be a journey. There's going to be ups and downs. And if you're in the foxhole with somebody that doesn't share the values, it just creates friction. And so you want to try and align around those values and have a clear definition of what that looks like. The next is really around what's your passion or purpose or cause. And with Magnet 360, it wasn't until we actually said, we're going to be the best in the world at Salesforce.com, that it was kind of crystal clear, or the North Star for people that wanted to join the organization or were at the organization. The interesting thing about that, when we actually went all in on it, half the company quit. Literally, like half the company a week later after the all company meeting. I had 20 people at the time. 10 of them was like, I don't want to do Salesforce.com. And actually that freaked me out. And then I got a phone call from a big prospect for a big web project. And they're like, we want you to do this website. And I'm like, we don't do websites anymore. I'm sorry. And it was like a $250,000 deal. I mean, a really big deal for us at the time. And they're like, what do you mean? Last week you're selling websites, now you're just doing Salesforce.com. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. And it was just super interesting, because we lost half the company. We lost a major deal. But 2 weeks later, Salesforce called us with a $350,000 Salesforce implementation. And had I tied up the 10 people on the web project, I wouldn't have had the 10 people to actually deliver on the Salesforce. And as we started recruiting for the 10 people we lost, we were crystal clear in that we're going somewhere with this technology, and we would love to have you be on this journey with us. And people that came to us shared the values, and they wanted to kick ass on Salesforce.com. And so as you go through each of the tools on the VTO, the next is the big, hairy, audacious goal, and then your marketing strategy, and taking that and then putting in your 3-year picture of like, what's this place look like in 3 years? And I remember saying we're going to be 12 million in the next 3 years. I think we were 2 million at the time. And like half my engineers, who are very black and white, which they should be because they're engineers, were like, what is this guy talking about? How are we going from 2 to 12? And the point was, you create a vision, you create a focus, you get really, really good at something, you get known for something, and some of those things that you write on paper just start happening. And so when I think about, what Traction brings to this organization, Traction Capital, we have our companies run on EOS because it helps them break through, and it's the language we can all speak. And I've seen it work firsthand. And so I think what's important for customers of PARQA and future people that are coming on the team is they're super focused in your industry, super focused with technology, and they're actually building some neat technology that's really going to drive, really great engagement for candidates, and talent managers, and really help people get to work. And I love it. It's a great focus.
Yeah, and I think change is obviously hard for everybody. I mean, we've seen it here at PARQA. The journey changes. Not everybody's wants to go on the journey. Not everybody's meant to be on the journey. And I think sometimes, that's a reality of business. But I think it's important that there's a clear vision of what the journey is, and that everybody knows that, and you can define it. You can make sure, going back to EOS, right? Like right person, right seat, wrong person, like that whole exercise of making sure, I think that really aligns people to the journey that we're going on. So I think it's a good transition, right? As we think of Salesforce as the platform for growth, right? So I've been in this industry 20 plus years. Salesforce always dabbled in staffing and recruiting a little bit. I'd say 3 years ago when Jared and I were at SI Exec Forum, we met with Bobby Bartlett from Target Recruit. We met Brian LeBlanc from Salesforce, and we're like, okay, hey, this thing's picking up a little steam. Next thing you know, it's an industry under professional services on their website. It used to be Bullhorn or Salesforce. Now it's Bullhorn and Salesforce. They were the premier sponsor at Bullhorn Engage a couple weeks back. So I just look at the Salesforce platform. It's massive. We know what it is. They're always investing. But let's talk about Salesforce. Salesforce is a platform for growth. So Matt, obviously you've got the most experience here, and I'd love your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people hear Salesforce, they just think of this CRM, customer relationship management system. And I'd like to have people think, people listening and watching this, think of Salesforce as an operating system. Just like Apple has its iOS, and there's a store, an app store, to be able to get things and applications built on the iOS platform. Salesforce is very much the same, just for business applications. And so you can think of it much more broadly in that a sense of they're an operating system for industries, they're an operating system for functions. So you can think about sales, marketing, and service. But as it relates to staffing, anything can be built on that. And that's what you're seeing with like this Bullhorn Engage from a standpoint of the operating systems there. Now they've built on top of it, and it's driving best in class adoption and engagement and speed and scale. And the beautiful thing about Salesforce in the 20 years that I've been involved, 25 years that I've been involved with Salesforce, is they're always innovating and always innovating. And what's amazing is they'll launch something and it'll have 5 features. And you're like, well, it doesn't have these 15 features that I need. What I'll tell you is those 5 features are just to get you started, get you engaged. And next quarter, there'll be 5 more. Next quarter, there'll be 5 more. Next quarter, there'll be 5 more. And by the time your investment, into Salesforce is fully realized, the next thing you know, your business is different. The way you're doing things is different, and it's really helping you grow. And I think what's underestimated, though, is the power of the implementation. The value isn't just the tool. I'm just telling you why it's exploding and why it's coming into the staffing industry. It's really in the blueprint and how you leverage it. And PARQA knows how to leverage it. PARQA knows how to work with Salesforce. PARQA knows how to work with staffing firms. And it's the idea of not making Salesforce work against you, it's making it work for you. And again, that's another reason why I'm super excited to be along the journey with PARQA, Salesforce, and being in the staffing industry.
Yep. Adam?
Yeah, I think there's really 3 places where Salesforce is an absolute game changer for the industry, right? The first is the platform itself, right? It's so accessible, it's so extensive, it's so customizable, right? The power of the platform itself unlocks so much for so many companies in this industry, which is used to tools that, maybe some homegrown systems and maybe some tools that are a bit more of a black box where it has some capability, but the data is pretty locked down. The APIs aren't accessible, right? So they're limited by the platform that they have, whether that be for sales or recruiting, applicant tracking, whatever it may be, right? So many staffing and recruiting organizations are just limited by their tech stack, and that's just how they've operated for a long time, right? Having that platform be accessible where you have the data there and you can do really anything you want with it, because you can integrate anything you want with it. And really, the sky is the limit, It's just a matter of defining a really, really highly efficient process, putting that in action, and empowering people to deliver against that process to do their jobs really effectively, right? Salesforce unlocks it all, right? So the platform itself is the first thing. The second thing is the Salesforce ecosystem. Right, Salesforce has done an incredible job of building an ecosystem of other technologies and other providers and consultancies like us, right, that help to deliver more and more value onto the platform to help companies accomplish their business objectives and help them grow and drive efficiency and cut costs and all the things that they care about, right? So I saw this firsthand when I was at SalesLoft. When I was at SalesLoft, we had many customers. And by the way, SalesLoft is a company that helps sellers be more efficient and effective and drive revenue growth by giving salespeople tools that help them do their jobs more effectively and engage with the right buyers at the right time in the right channels. Right. We had customers that were in the staffing and recruiting industry, but oftentimes we couldn't connect to their data. Right, it was stored in a homegrown system. So we couldn't have the real-time integration, or it was stored in another system that, was limiting by whatever means it could. And so their sales process was inhibited by the fact that we just couldn't connect systems in the right way. With Salesforce, that's never the case, right? There's so many platforms out there. There's so many technologies out there, and there's so many services organizations like PARQA that can help to develop solutions that are going to make those businesses really, really effective because of the extensibility and accessibility of the data within the platform. The third thing is the investment in innovation around Agentforce, right? Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's thinking about how AI is going to help transform their business, and the staffing and recruiting industry is going to be no different, right? AI is going to make recruiters more effective. It's going to make sellers more effective in getting those contracts, and all across the board, AI is going to have an impact, right? And the amount of investment that Salesforce is putting into Agentforce to make sure that every organization who has their data in the Salesforce platform has the ability to tap into that set of data to drive some sort of AI use case, right? It's going to be really, really, really powerful stuff. So I love to see what Bullhorn and Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud is already doing around thinking about amplifying, thinking about how AI can really, really accelerate our customers' ability to drive AI within their business. Agentforce just unlocks all of the potential, right? The sky is the limit. Right? If the data is there and we have the AI capability, and oh, by the way, if the data is clean, there's some really, really powerful things that we can do. Right. So I think those three things, the platform itself, the ecosystem, and the investment in Agentforce really are going to make this a transformational platform for folks in the industry.
Absolutely. Jared?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse because we're all on the same page, but mine was, I think at the speed of innovation, whether you're Bullhorn or a small ATS, like Salesforce spends billions of dollars on R&D every year. And so if you're an ATS that, whatever, it does 20 million in revenue, you're probably putting 2 to 5 into R&D, where Salesforce is putting 9 billion or whatever the number is. So it's like at the speed of innovation, like the money is behind it, which is kind of falls into that leading the AI push. But I think what was, Adam and I think Travis probably heard me say this, and so I'll piggyback off of what Matt said, even though we didn't plan this, is, as not being a Salesforce guy, I told Adam that I'm designing a smart home system so that I can learn about the process without actually having to learn the Salesforce part. And the analogy I used was a lot of the ATSs are kind of like iOS in that it's a closed system and you only have so much access to things. And so as I go to build my home smart home, I chose Amazon because it really is that partner network of like you get so much more access to all of the apps and tools that aren't necessarily just tied to Apple and iOS. And so I think that's a huge component of Salesforce being that platform. And when you talk about people that underestimate it, I think the two things that came to mind is, I was on the plane back from Engage and there was a rep sitting behind me, which I won't name names, but he was complaining about Salesforce because, it's so expensive. Like, it's so expensive. Well, maybe it is a little more expensive, but so is hiring 40 recruiters and then firing 20 and then hiring 40 and then firing 20. Like, this industry is in a perpetual cycle of hiring and firing recruiters and not leveraging technology. If companies actually decide to put their money into the technology and into companies like PARQA that are actually helping you build the tractor to plow the field instead of actually just pulling out your rake and trying to do it yourself. I think that's what's really happening on a macro scale in this industry is the companies that learn to invest in the technology into AI are going to see massive gains. And I think Bullhorn already kind of highlighted that at Engage, that the early adopters in a market that's been, frankly, a little bit stagnant the last 3 years or declining based on economics. There are companies that are winning, and they're winning because they're leading with technology. So I think that's important for the audience to understand.
Yeah, I'd say no doubt. Speed of innovation, the R&D, AI, whether it's Agentforce, that whole App Exchange ecosystem, and the fact that you can do a lot of the stuff natively within the same system is really big, right? And even as you start looking at in staffing and recruiting, you got a lot of people's PII, your data, like staying secure. All of there's just so many things out there that are just on that platform just make things a lot easier. And then the other thing I want to say too is, there's some big ATS systems that are on Salesforce. There's some smaller up and comers that are on Salesforce. I think there's a lot of flexibility there too, as you look at some specialties or just certain areas that are a little bit different for folks to really grow and build on top of it. So I think that's the other part too, not having this big platform that you have to maintain and continuously have a team to grow it and update and do all those things. Like there's a lot of flexibility that comes with Salesforce that I think is super important as you build systems. So without going too deep into it, obviously we're talking a lot about PARQA. We've talked a lot about Salesforce. We're all in. We're bleeding blue, as Jared likes to say. But let's talk a little bit about our product.
I can't copyright that. That's Matt's.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, Matt, Jared, definitely listen to you because I've heard that quite a bit. So kudos on that. But Adam, why don't you talk a little about kind of like our products and services and PARQA as we move forward? What we provide for our customers and our, obviously our focus area is Salesforce, but a little more specific than that.
Yeah, totally. At the end of the day, what we're building here is a market-leading consultancy that exists to make our customers successful. Right. When we think about our services and the things that we want to do, right, everything that we're building, everything that we're designing around our offerings is all laser focused on how do we help our customers achieve their business goals to help move their businesses forward. Right. There's a lot of services firms, there's a lot of consultancies out there that, they're just SOW engines. Right. SOW in, we do some work, SOW out, SOW in, right? Like there's a lot of firms out there where they're just taking the work, they're taking the projects, they're moving on, right? PARQA isn't going to operate that way, right? PARQA is all about, right? An SOW is a means to an end. I always like to say, customers don't like to buy services. Services aren't a fun thing to buy, right? Nobody wants to buy a set of hours over a period of time, right? What customers want to buy is transformation. What customers want to buy is growth. What customers want to buy is efficiency, right? And when PARQA is laser focused on what our customers are trying to accomplish, right, the change they're trying to drive in their business, and our services can be a means to help them accomplish those goals and move their business forward, that's what it's all about. Right. So we're designing our services around the strategic planning that it takes to understand what our customers' objectives are, right? The key drivers of their business and how we can leverage technology to help them move their business forward and create roadmaps that help them accelerate their business priorities through the use of the technology that we can deliver, right? The implementation services that is actually standing that technology up, right? And enabling users and putting users in seats where they can use that technology to help do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively, so they can hit their own individual numbers as employees of our customers' business, right? And then the ongoing optimization services, because when you implement a piece of software, you implement a piece of technology, the job is never done, right? I always like to say when the implementation ends, right, we're only just beginning, right? The journey's only just starting, right? So there's always a backlog of items that don't make the cut. Or there's feedback from users based on, hey, I really like how this works, but this didn't really work as well as we thought it would as designed, right? So we provide those optimization services to help our customers continue to fine tune and perfect that system over time to make sure that they're driving more and more results for their business. And oh, by the way, right, putting our customers in a position where they can self-maintain the tool, right? They can continue to be the admins of their tool. They can build up their internal capability to drive their function and continue to grow the tech. And then we're always there to lean on to drive the innovation and growth.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've really, I've really enjoyed talking in our conversations when we look at, we're calling it optimization services, but some people in the traditional sense might call it managed services. Was I've had those conversations of, hey, I buy this bucket of hours from XYZ, and I pay this every quarter, and my problems never get fixed, right? And so I know we have a big focus on adding value from that side of it. It's we don't just want to bill a bucket of hours. We want to be strategic. We want to have deliverables attached to it, and we want to be providing value. So I think that's very important in an industry that's used to buying buckets of hours, which I'm not allowed to say that after this call, by the way.
No.
Right. Um, but, I think that's an important distinction there. Jared, how about from your side? Anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, yes to everything Adam said. Obviously, I think this a little bit, we didn't really touch on it in kind of the intros, but I think one of the things that I really admired about Magnet 360 was it was really a marketing company and a Salesforce company coming together to drive results. And so, like, when we talk about this, as PARQA started as a marketing company and we kept drifting towards technology and data and all that. But, I keep saying as we go through our BTO process and stuff is like, I do not want to, like, it's my fault that we weren't an implementation company faster because I was stalling on that because I really wanted to focus on the result side of it. And I think that, as this all came together, like, we don't want to be known as just an implementation company. We want to be known as a consulting and a business driver. And I think, keeping that as the forefront of our mission is, the cliches of we want to reduce job board spend. We want to increase recruiter efficiency. We want to help recruiters make more money. We want to get people to work faster. That's actually our mission. So while we're bleeding blue, like, it's really around the fact that we believe that Salesforce allows us to do those things for our clients, and that's our number one priority. So that to kind of complement Adam's side, and then I think on the other side is we actually are in the process of coming out of beta with our Experience Cloud product, which I think is a great example of combining Salesforce with our marketing background to say, like, okay, here's a tool. It, in its native state, maybe not like the sexiest thing in the world, but if you put that real user experience layer on top of it, all of a sudden, we got incredible traction within Bullhorn, within Assist, within Salesforce. And so I'm really excited as a whole to get this investment from Traction to kind of double down on that and really create great experiences for candidates along the way. So,
Yeah. If I can add to that, I'm glad you said that, Jared, because the notion of user experience, right, is something that's so central and so important to what we do. And it's not just about creating incredible experiences for candidates, right? And so our marketing roots and our marketing background and thinking about user experience and all of that, right? That translates to internal users at our customers as well. That translates to recruiter experience, right? That translates to hiring manager experience. And when you understand deeply each of these individual personas that exist within our customer's business, and we not only design, front end beautiful pages for them to engage with, right, that are easy to navigate, but you also think about the workflow and you think about the process and you think about what's actually going to make them successful in doing their job so that they can hit their numbers and be successful in what they're doing for, their boss, right? We can design the systems and the process with that user experience in mind as well. So that background in marketing and experience when it comes to user experience design and how we think about that, it's not just about the front end, it's about the business process as well as we think about every user of the system.
I'm just going to say too, just to add a little bit from my end, as you think about implementations, think data migration. We do marketing cloud implementations. We've talked about Experience Cloud with our Play. I will say this, there is a previous version from just a few weeks back of the PulseCast where we talk with Adam from Guidant Global over in the UK, specifically about and Jeff Newman from Bullhorn, about our Experience Cloud Play and how they're leveraging it in staffing and recruiting. So if you'll learn a little bit more about that, there's a whole episode out there about that. But to Jared's point, we're excited with Traction to be able to double down on that. And we know there's some features, and we talk about AI and we talk about agents, and we're talking to the team at Salesforce, and we have all these ideas, and now we have the funding and the team that's building behind it to be able to actually implement those. So that's really exciting. All right. So this is always a fun one, right? Let's talk about the future of the recruitment industry, right? And I think back, Matt, you were talking about starting Yardstick in the middle of COVID. Um, and I always say it was like we were an industry that was stuck in time, whether it was from marketing or technology. And I think about that time in April when it was like, wait a second, wait, we have to have VPNs and we have to have people work from home. And holy crap, we actually have to use technology. Jared, you mentioned it earlier, right? We can't just hire 40 and fire 20 and like that. Like you're not in that. Like it's hard, got much harder to do that side of it. But I really do think, to use lack of a better term, it kicked our industry in the ass to have to speed up and really start to adapt technology, marketing, all of these things that are really starting to take off, automation. So let's talk about the future, right? I think it's breakneck speed at this point, and it changes every day. But Jared, if you look in your crystal ball, what do you see in the next, let's call it 24 to 48 months?
Yeah, so I think, like, frankly, this goes back probably almost 5 years, like maybe even before the pandemic. But if you truly look at the macro side of it, like we have a growing economy and a shrinking workforce. And so you already have a supply and demand issue. And people say, well, AI is going to take jobs. If you look at history and when the car was invented and when the computer was invented, it actually creates more jobs, not less jobs. Like we have a growing economy. So we have a fundamental supply and demand imbalance in most of the world, honestly, not even just the United States. And so I think, it's a very exciting time to be in staffing because people are going to have to be more creative and they're going to have to solve problems. It's not the old school commoditized way of doing it. People are going to have choices, and when they have choices, then they're going to align to brands and to staffing firms that they want to work with, not who calls them first for a dollar more. So I think that is like the encompassing of what's really happening. I think that I've said this before from a Salesforce perspective is Mark Benioff's been known to say that he wants to have a seat at every C-suite within an enterprise organization. And I would argue that HR has been probably one of the laggards that has been a focus of Salesforce. But all of a sudden, you have human and digital labor, and probably the last generation of managers that are only going to manage humans. And so all of a sudden, you have this whole new idea that frankly I can't use my crystal ball yet because I don't know what it's going to look like, but we're going to go on the journey and figure it out. But you have some major macro changes happening in the industry and in the world and everything that's going on. So I think my thing is Salesforce is coming, and when Salesforce comes, like it's no joke, and they come hard and they come fast. And so I think we're going to see a real a change in the market. What it looks like, I don't know. Like obviously the M&A is going to pick up. Yeah, like people are going to consolidate, people are going to change, people are going to go to business. But I think it's going to happen faster at a bigger rate than maybe in the past 10 years. So I'll pass.
Perfect.
I'll get off my soapbox.
Adam.
Yeah, for sure. I think that one of the trends that we will see is just the emergence of AI, right? And I think that's going to take a few different flavors, right? There's going to be the hot, sexy new tools that come out that have a really big value prop that don't end up panning out. There's going to be some that do. There's going to be some leaders who take some risks and try out some new things, and some things are going to work really, really well and transform their businesses. Others might not. With this emerging trend and the emerging technologies that are coming, like folks are going to have to operate with a fail fast mentality, right? Doing nothing is not going to be the way to win, as Jared said earlier, right? The businesses that are innovating and putting technology first are the ones that are winning, right? But folks have to operate with eyes wide open. Right? Not every new sexy AI tool is the one that's going to be the game changer, right? That doesn't mean to wait, right? And so how do organizations make really intentional, thoughtful, big bets where the AI is a little bit more mature, right? Where they can find a specific process that's time intensive or resource intensive and figure out how can AI get in there and streamline or improve that process or ultimately take it over, right? So the human beings that are in there that are engaging with candidates, or the human beings that are, managing parts of the business, can be more effective and more efficient in what they are doing, right? And we can cut costs in the right way, invest in other ways, and figure out how the AI can truly become a value add in the equation. Right? There's going to be things that are going to work really, really well. There's going to be things that we try that don't. When I say we try, I mean the industry as a whole, right? And I think the folks that jump in and they try new things, and when they don't work, they fail fast and move on to the next thing. Those are going to be the winners in the end.
Awesome. Matt, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to the point of the industry and the opportunity, it's massive. If you think about your current state as an organization and what a future state could look like to really drive things more effectively, that's the way I would think leaders of staffing companies should be thinking about it. And like Yardstick, I think it was last year we won the Shark Tank SIA Award, Shark Tank Award, right? And it was for background checks. And if you would have said to anyone in that room that does in staffing, is like, do you think there's any innovation into background checks? They're like, everybody hates their background check provider. It's a slow process. It's expensive, like all these things. But we disrupted using some automation, using some AI, using some things. And I think that's now with Salesforce and other things that are coming to market, there's just a huge opportunity to transform the business. So, in short, I think that firms, to kind of sum up what Jared said, is that anybody that will combine automation with agility, that speed, and create a real human connection, because people are involved in this process, are going to win. And so I'm excited, to see that the PARQA's got the expertise to embed those best practices into Salesforce and help people get to value faster and help them grow faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the future for our industry is definitely bright, and it's not without bumps and tough times here and there. And there's certain sectors at time or verticals that do better than others, but we are starting to see some momentum on the background. We're seeing it, in the background, we're seeing it with our customers, and as we talked about the journey earlier, I couldn't be more excited to be on the journey with the three of you, along with the rest of our team. I think we're in the right place at the right time. Our partnership, Matt, with you and the team at Traction Capital is massive for us in helping us take this vision that Jared's had since the first time I met him up there in Minneapolis, and talking through all of this and really kind of bringing it to the market. And we're receiving that validation, like we see it from our clients, we see it from our partners, early success. There's still a lot of work to do, but really excited to continue on this journey and take PARQA to the next level. I think there's a lot of, I think you said the opportunity is big. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for us, and excited on where we go from here. So I'd like to thank you guys again for joining me today. I was super excited about finally getting this PulseCast recorded after we've talked about it for a little while. But thank you again for joining us, and let's go get it.
Let's jam.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's rock.
Let's do it.
We're going to rock.
All right.